Hello. I always like to start with a joke beforehand. So I said to my joke writing team, the theme for the week is about power and responsibility. And they came back to me, and this was, right at deadline with this story. Okay, here's the story. Um, there was this manager, and is like, got his team together, and he says, "With this project has been delayed. It's not done. Who is responsible for this? Take one step forward." And the entire group altogether took one step backwards. And that's it. That's the story, right? And I said to my joke writing team, "Is this your way of telling me you've got nothing?" That's the joke. All right. My name is Dr. Asiter Bear. I'm a professor of economics, teacher of meditation. We do this class every week. This is an introduction to heart rhythm meditation, method of meditation that comes out of Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan. And I'm delighted to have Leah Schaefer with me here today, who's a
Hello.
long-time teacher and student of meditation, yogini, and all around great person. So we're delighted to have
Thank
you
you.
again.
Thank you.
So
Oh,
we always want to we like to have a theme for each class, and this like I said during our joke period, the theme is power and responsibility. So this is something that we want to be thinking about and developing internally, right? We already have a sense of what this means. You say the word power, right? All I have to do is tell you that's the theme, and then you think along a certain pathway, right? Or responsibility. Oh, what does that mean? What comes up, right? When we go inside. So we're going to address this theme. We're going to talk about this. We're going to share some of our own experiences and go into some practices which really help to bring out these qualities. Um, but first, we're going to do some just basic kind of introduction to the practice, so we can build energy together. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Leah.
thank you so much, Asatar. I'm very excited to be here. So let's meditate. I'm a big fan of just stretching a little bit, especially for the first set in the practice. Just kind of, I'm going to do some. I'm seated and I'm doing cat cows for just a second. And then you can, of course, continue to do that until you feel comfortable. I'm going to go ahead and come into my seat. So there's a lot of power in just taking the commitment to sit. So this is almost like, I would say 70% of the battle most of the time when it comes to meditation practice and developing a practice is committing to the point where you actually come into your posture. The posture is that step of commitment. And in that step of commitment, in the showing up piece, there's tremendous power. And so just go ahead and feel that in yourself, in your body right now, as you sit, as you've made it this far. And then deepen your breathing. So you want to do deep belly breathing, meaning that your diaphragm muscle is really moving to its fullest capacity. So when you inhale, you might want to allow your belly muscles to relax so that you can open your lower abdomen up, allowing your breath to come into its fuller capacity. And then when you exhale, a lot of the exhalation is going to be very natural, and you want to instill the power of your own self-expression through the end of the exhalation by really breathing every bit of air out and having the feeling like you're expanding your breath out in all directions. And the last bit of your breath moves the furthest from you, as if you were going to imprint your heart's energy, your heart's light, to the furthest capacity of your atmosphere, of your presence, your energetic being. And keep breathing this way. You're going to find that you might favor an inhalation or an exhalation, but trying to make each as full as possible, because it's really your fullness of breath that will allow you to hold the power that you gain within yourself, or at least that understanding of the power that's already there. So your full breath is what will allow you to hold all the power you have and have gained. It will help you to digest. It will help you to integrate the energy of the power that you hold. Good. And then as you breathe this way, go ahead and begin to breathe in and out of your heart, almost as if your heart itself is breathing. So start from the very core, the very center of your being. And then inhale right into the very center, the very core, the corazon, the heart of your being. And then as you exhale from that core, from your center, exhaling out in all directions, expanding your heart's energy into the surrounding area. Your heart itself is very much a powerhouse, and so you want to do deep, big breath with your heart to allow your heart to integrate its extraordinary capacity for energy and emotion, its extraordinary capacity to hold some of the deepest, most profound experiences of love and pain, power. And then we're just going to take 1 or 2 breaths into our crown center. So this area where if you were a king or a queen and you had a crown on you, try to breathe from your heart to the crown center, back and forth, big breath. Really feeling that connection of your crown to the ethereal realms, to this kind of stream of consciousness. And then every queen and king has their throne. So now for just 1 or 2 breaths, try to feel your root center, try to feel your tailbone, your hip bones grounded into your throne, the seat that you've taken, the position. And just a few deep, full breaths, breathing into the throne, into the root. The space which allows you to have the strength to hold. Good. And then just for 1 or 2 breaths, really breathing along the whole channel from the crown, heart, and throne. Back up again. Because if we really want to hold our power, we have to be both sensitive enough to hear the whispers of the ethereal realm and strong enough, grounded enough to endure the cry of humanity. And our heart can be the perfect bridge to be able to hold that much energy throughout our whole system from root to crown. And as you're ready, go ahead and move your body and open up your eyes.
Well, when someone who really knows meditation talks you through it, it's really helpful, isn't it? That's what I'm feeling after that, you know. Um, hmm. You know, the wisdom that is expressed in that meditation of that you feel different kinds of things uh, in different centers, different parts of your body. Um, that's really something, right? Like when it's like someone says you wear your crown, um, that is an inner thing that's being expressed. But you know, there's a real sensation attached to that, right? There's an iconography that goes with that. There's a feeling in your body that goes with that, right? Um, and so that's something that you know is good to work with, right? All of this richness is there within us. Um, so you know when we're talking about the theme for the class about power and responsibility, um, you know we're like, what should we say about these topics? Right? This is a big topic, and so I was like, well, we could share some of our stories about it, and so we didn't, and then you know, right, Leah, you said okay, right, but then we didn't say anything about what stories is actually going to be, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this. So I've got one for you guys. I'm gonna lay it on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you know one of the themes here is that like power and responsibility should and usually do, right, naturally have a kind of relationship. You know, um, the more responsibility, the more power. I mean, that's just the way the scales tend to balance. You know, and if not, it's going to fail, right? Um, so that's you know that's kind of I think where we're coming from, you know, energetically, right? So all right, here's my story. Right, when I was a lot younger, I had you know finished college, wondered what I was going to do with my life. You know, I really enjoyed school. I wrote a thesis, so I thought, well, maybe I'll go to graduate school. So I took a year off, uh, spent it doing sculpture, you know, making a living, that sort of thing. um, and then I got into grad school. I was one of the youngest people in my class. There was a lot of people who had done other things and whatever, right? So I just remember being in my first like TA. I was a TA, right? So that means I was the like assistant to the professor, and you know, like on Friday, that's the day for your discussion, right? And then they're with me, right? And I'm responsible for at least part of their education, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
college meant so much to me, you know, like that's why here I was in graduate school. And and here I am basically representing college, right? Representing college. I was 23 years old, right? Um, so that felt like that's a lot of responsibility, you know. And you know, at the same time, okay, well, it wasn't like it was my whole. I was basically kind of repeating and reaffirming what had happened in the lectures already, right, on Monday and Wednesday or whatever, right? So you know, it wasn't like I was completely on my own, but it did feel like, right? Like, you know, you're in front of a class, anything can happen, right? You know, like you can get in any kind of question and people just assume because you're there, right? You're in that role that you know everything, right? I mean, like it's a
Yeah.
trip, right?
Yeah.
Well, people seem to assume that about me today. I don't know why. Why could that be, right? Is it because I look like the kind of person who might know everything, right? I don't. Let me be clear on that. But you know, so just to finish my story, right? Like you, I'm given this tremendous sense of responsibility, but. I am also given the power to make that happen, right? Like, you know, I can make that happen. 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 I can make I take it very seriously within myself, and also, I have the institutional backing, whatever, right, to be able to, you know, run the my part of the thing, right, as as however I see fit, right. So that's quite something, right. That like allows me to really bring my creative efforts to the fore with this, right.
Right.
Because those, if they don't go together, right, if you're responsible for something, you don't have the ability, right, or you don't have the support, you don't have, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you don't like the word power, right. For
Mm.
years I did not like
Mm.
that word, right, as a young person, right.
Oh, I'm surprised. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I'm surprised. You're such a powerful person that I'm surprised that you didn't like that word before. So that's cool.
No, I was a rebel and I disliked, authority, and
Authority.
I still
Right.
do,
Right.
and yeah, so I was like, everyone who has power is a huge douchebag, like that was my that was my reality, like as a
Right.
young person, and by that I mean, up to the present day. So that, I don't know, I always had a struggle with it internally, right, about like, well, if I come into my power, then am I, just being a huge asshole, right? That
That's
was
a good
my,
point.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and also it's like what's interesting to me when I was thinking about this topic is that the definition of power is so different. You okay? Yeah. The definition of power is so different. There's you can actually have for each individual, you can actually have power with anything. So like I like to think of the power of innocence, for example.
Mm,
Like how much effort do we put into protecting the innocence of our babies,
mm,
you know? Um, it's just an extraordinary power for us. It will bring us to do things that we never thought we had the strength to do, you know. And I also like to think of the power of beauty itself. Like, if I'm making a decision to have a conversation with somebody, am I able to create harmony or a harmonic pitch in that conversation if it's a difficult conversation? And maintain beauty. And in this way, it
mm,
can actually have a more powerful effect. And I, of course, like to think of, of an example of that as being Cleopatra, who was able to hold Egypt together during political turmoil through her beauty, you know? So, so there are many definitions of power as there are individuals. There's just
mm.
infinite ways to hold, harness, and create power. Um, but
By that reckoning, it's almost like saying it's more like an energy, right? Than,
yeah,
you know, I mean, we tend, like, when we hear the word power, we often think of like politics, right? Or,
right,
oh, somebody's been forced to do something, right? That
right,
kind of, and it's very narrow, right? If we think about it that way, I mean, yes, that is accurate, like it's that is power being brought to bear. But, you know, if we looked at it as a flow of energy, right? Then what would be its characteristics, right? Um, we, if you're like me, right? So I felt uncomfortable with it because I always, a very deep kind of sense of like justice and injustice, right? And
right,
I
yeah,
just often look at the world and feel like, well, power is creating injustice, right, all around me.
yes,
Um, and so it's like power that's the problem, right? Um, but I think like, well, this is a young person's kind of perspective, like, the problem is not with the energy itself, but how it is directed, right? How it is used, what form it takes, right? So,
yeah.
we don't give up on energy because energy has been in the wrong time and place in the past, right? We work with it.
That's absolutely right. It's like a misrepresentation of the energy itself, and I totally agree with you um, on that front of like the major injustices that happen at the hands of people that have too much power, in my opinion, for their own state of realization, they actually don't have the capacity to hold the amount of power that they have. And therefore, they're not able to make decisions that are in line of having that much power. So it's like um, their emotional and energetic capacity is not able to hold the amount of power they've been given. And part of that is because their stunted realization is partially um, because they are cutting off sources of accountability because they've gained too much power, and then they're cutting off sources of accountability. So that's kind of the thing I was thinking about. And so you have to have, if you're gaining power, you have to have the ability to hold the amount of power that you have in your system, the amount of power, because otherwise it's overwhelming completely. And like, you have to be able to balance that throughout your whole system. Again, one way to do that is through your deep breath, deep breathing.
Isn't it interesting that we already have this like kind of in our lexicon when you say like, don't let it go to your head, right? You
Right.
know, don't let it become ungrounded, you know, don't let it become separate from here, right? I mean, like we don't say a power, we don't say don't let it go to your heart, you know? Like why not? I mean, maybe there's some wisdom in that, right? Maybe we know like the danger is no, you start right using it for small purpose instead of for, you know, right, connecting for a larger purpose, right, for the good of all, right?
Yeah, the good of your community or the good of the larger global humanity,
Yeah.
good of all, the like the unity consciousness experience of being able to hold that while staying grounded and centered. Yeah.
Well, and now we put it that way, it starts to become like kind of a rare thing, though, right? You know, because we think of all the times where we see, you know, and there's a lot of examples of like disconnected, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but there's plenty of examples of connected too, you know, like, I mean, I think if we broaden our horizon, right, if we broaden our scope, um, you know, we'll see a lot of those kinds of examples, right, of people who are using their power, their gift, right, in a way that is connected.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I
it's
feel like I'm setting you up to share like the perfect story. I don't know if you have one, but if,
the
if you
story.
do,
Oh goodness. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So
like as if I knew what the story was, and I was like, and that reminds me of the.
yeah. So the most power that I have personally ever felt, I've always felt responsible. I've always felt responsible. But the most power that I've ever felt was when I guided a group of 45 experienced meditators into a state of unity consciousness. And it was the amount of energy that happened during that meditation was just extreme. I mean, it was really
Mm,
over the top. It was like I was lucky because I had come in. I was staffing an event, a retreat, and I had kind of been asked to teach, but everybody had already been warmed up for a very long time, so they had been
mm,
building this capacity in themselves. But then I was asked to guide the meditation, and I was completely blown away by the
mm,
experience itself. And it was extremely overwhelming, to be honest. And there was a lot of like this feeling of like I became highly sensitive, and it was like this feeling of like overwhelm of like that they were trying to like, people were trying to thank me, which I was so grateful for. But like at the same time I was like, oh my god, like like I'm not worthy, or
mm.
something or another.
What a great
So
story. Yes, I know. I feel you on that, you know, and it makes me remember seeing you in at those times, you know, and that's because I did see some of those, you know, and anyway, that's my mere sentimentality. You know, I think this point about you know, when you open the channel and you're given what you need to, you know, meet the demand that's on you, right? Um, I mean, that's it's an extraordinary feeling, you know.
Right. And it's like, it's, you just said like meet the demand that's on you. You know, when you just think about the word response ability, right? The ability to respond. And just
Mm,
like, and just trusting that in yourself, like trusting your ability to respond, you know, when you've been given the power in some form.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, well, should we say more, or should we do a meditation at this point? Right.
I think a meditation would be wonderful.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, let's do one. So, you you want to get your posture together, be able to be upright but relaxed, and you want to tune into your breath and make your breath deep. So expand your diaphragm, expand your belly, let your belly really grow as you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, you contract your abdominal muscles, squeeze out the breath. So you're taking a bigger, slower, deeper breath than you usually do. It's important that if your breath is going to be deep, it's important that it also be slow, because by taking a bigger, deeper breath, you're going to be breathing in more oxygen. So slowing down your breath calms down your energy. It allows your body to absorb that in the proper balance with carbon dioxide and so on. Now, we also want to make the breath rhythmic, that even, powerful rhythm. This is what gives you that bass that Leah spoke of, right? That's so important, that sense of being grounded. So your breath flows in, your breath flows out like a giant, mighty pendulum swinging back and forth, right? But this swinging is under your control, right? You are the one who does this, right? So it's more like you're the one on the swing, right? You're swinging yourself by your breath, giving you that strong, powerful base that can handle the demands, right? Responsibility brings with it demands. You know that that's going to happen. Greater the responsibility, the more you'll feel the demands. And you need strength for that, right? You need inner strength. And when you feel that is lacking, when you feel that is weak, you take a moment and make your breath in this manner that I described. Make it deep, make it slow, make it swing back and forth evenly, and use your abdominal muscles to really squeeze out so you can take a much bigger breath in. You fill up your belly and then fill up your chest. Perhaps you feel how it refreshes you. Now, when you have built up that base, you keep it going. But now that you have that strength, that foundation, that groundedness, now you can really send out your vibe. You you need to build the radio tower before you can send out a strong signal. But once you've done that, then you feel your breath carry on, right? Your breath fuels your heart, shines forth from you in all directions, and sends that light forth out into the universe like a wave. Now, you can direct it with your mind, of course. You direct it toward what needs energy, what for you is a barrier, what do you need help with, what would support you, what do you want, what do you need. You need some kind of target, right? For power to be expressed, it needs an object, it needs a direction, it needs a goal, it needs an intention. So, what should that be, right? Well, you know already, you know in your heart. You let that arise with the question. You just ask yourself the questions that I asked you, right? What is it that I want? What is it that I need? What is blocking me? Right? Even the question itself, it's best if that comes from you, right? Because the way that the question is part of the answer. So you just remember that whenever you are asking a difficult question to yourself, right? The big questions are always difficult. Maybe you don't feel like you're getting anything back. Maybe you sit and you do your thing, you reflect, and you feel like you're not getting anything back. That happens. But just reflect on even the way that you pose the question has a meaning, right? Everything that happens has a meaning. And by working with the power of the breath, you learn about sending your energy forward. You learn about sending your energy in all directions toward the object you choose. All right, let's end our session there.
Mm. Mm. That was lovely, Asitar. Like just in like your own voice and your ability to hold your power and your presence throughout that meditation, I think it reminds me a lot of like the blue flame energy, where it's like instead of it being like the yellow orange part of the flame where it's kind of everywhere and all over the place, right? It's like the blue part of the flame actually has the most like concentration of energy, and it's very calm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's what that meditation reminded me of, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. We have a question. Is it normal to get emotional? Yes, it is.
Yeah. And emotion has a ton of power behind it. Why do you think it kind of overthrows you? It's kind of like these swells, inside your body.
Yeah.
Superpower. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to say that like sometimes these extraordinarily powerful feelings come up in meditation, and it's mind bending. Like I mean, that's one kind of thing that happens. Sometimes it's incredibly emotional. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think especially when you meditate with your heart in mind as a focus, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you know, what is inside you is so powerful, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say, a lot of times it's not like that. Sometimes it is, low energy. Sometimes it's like, I mean, especially if you've had a lot of bangers, a lot of those kind of sessions, right? Where like, whoa, wow, that was amazing, right? Um, I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those, right? So sometimes when I sit and then not much happens, right? I go, oh, all right, wow, yes. it also that's a common thing actually, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes the flow of energy that you feel is overwhelming, right? It's like if you can turn on a fire hose or turn it off, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah,
And
totally.
sometimes it feels like it's off, maybe it's dribbling a little bit or something, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like uncomfortable, like this, and you're just like sitting there like, mm. You know? It's not always like bliss and like power, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we're humans too. I mean, we once were a few thousand years ago. It's
Yeah, absolutely.
whatever happens, the point is, I think whatever happens is part of the experience, right? So, but you don't put it in a box either. You don't say, uh, you know, don't be like me, right? Don't expect anything, right? And you sit down, you know.
No. Yeah, you never you don't actually know what to expect each time. It's the same thing with yoga, it's like every time I get on my mat, sometimes my body's open and sometimes it's closed. And there's, the point is to keep practicing, with without the judgment, right? And I think that that's in general a really great message when it comes to coming into your own personal power and your own personal empowerment, is because it's like you like there's a lot of people who everybody has power in them, everybody in within them, right? And there's a lot of people who it's like they're kind of what I call like the warriors of light, like these people that have come onto this planet to actually like create happiness, to create innovation, to create brilliance, like to actually do something, right, to heal, right, all these things. And those people, because they're more sensitive, typically they're more sensitive on emotional energetic levels, typically, maybe not always, they're going to have a harder time coming into their power, and allowing themselves to be powerful. And so you really have to you have to become a lion-hearted one. You have to be brave. You have to become a lion-hearted one and be brave. And what can kind of help with that is to kind of um, adopt this attitude of like, I'm going to show up to my practice whether it's perfect or not. I'm going to show up to my practice whether my body's closed or open. I'm going to show up, no matter what. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Um, you know, what can you really add? It's you you cannot know what experience you need right now. I mean, we think we do. We're like, I'm stressed. I need a distraction, right? Or we think we know what we need. And sometimes we're not the best judge, so we have these two sides, right? We want to achieve the things that we've set out to achieve, right? I mean, like,
Mhm.
and what better way to use our power, right? uh, Now we should go through a set of questions about this, right? Like when we're tapping into strong primal kind of emotions, right? And you're saying, right, connect with your desires, right? Like this. It's good to go through a process with those desires, right? What is it? How does it relate to others, right? I mean, like, we're not saying be indiscriminate about your desires, right? We're saying desire is energy, right? So you want to be examining that, right? Like, and taking it seriously, right? That's what meditation is for, right? Meditation helps you take energy seriously or actually
Mhm.
work with it, right? Learn
Yeah,
about it. What is it? What is it
you're right.
doing to me? How do you change it?
Hmm. Yeah, and feeling it, it's like you're able to feel it the more that you focus on it. You become more refined in your ability to feel it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, here's a follow-up comment. I couldn't focus after my eyes started watering and I felt scared. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the inner journey is a journey like any other. It is, you encounter the unknown, and there's nothing scarier than the unknown. Um,
Yeah.
there's so much within us, right? There's so much for us to
Mhm.
know, for us to explore. And a lot of it is just we don't know it right now, right? Like we experience it, or we don't know the significance of it, right? Or we don't know how it connects, right? We don't know how our non-logical self is dealing with this or processing this, right? So there's so many layers. Um, Very natural to feel some fear.
Yeah.
It takes courage.
Yeah, and also, that's a really common response to feeling power. Like when we're in that position, like when you were 23 years old and you're in front of the group of students, it's like you suddenly, like it suddenly like dawns on you, and it's a really natural experience to then feel fear. And that's part of the reason it's like you have to be brave. You have to be brave-hearted. um, in this, and that comes with meditation too. You have to be brave enough to even be here with us. So I just want to congratulate everybody for being here right now.
Well done, you all. You all get a
Yay!
hand. That's why they come to give for us to give them a round of applause. We'll do it. We will do it. We will, absolutely, and we mean it, of course, because like we're saying, right, the inner journey is scary. It's difficult, right? You're going to go through these incredible highs and lows. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
it really is something that we respect tremendously. Because we know, right? We know it's difficult.
Yeah, and it's like what comforts me the most. So like when my fear kicks in with power or emotion or intensity, or even just like little baby steps, like toward something I care so much about, like little tiny steps, even then, it's like I can get really overwhelmed. And so like the breath, the big breath, like first of all, like your heart has a lot of capacity to hold because it has so much energy in it. But then like to help you digest these things, the big breath is extraordinarily helpful. So however you can get yourself to breathe deeply will help you integrate, digest, hold.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, Now, I should say, right, that the way that we got good at this is by practicing it a lot, like we
Yes.
practice this hard, like,
Yeah.
so just, I mean, bear that in mind, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, am I going to say to you, like, 2 minutes a day is all you need? No, because I'm not in the business of lying to you, right? Like, that's going to give you the calm of Dr. Bear. Maybe, I hope so, right? But if it's not working, work harder at it, right? I mean, that's the basic reality, right? Like
Yeah.
and
And
it took me a lot more than that, right? I'll just tell you, um,
you,
I have spent many, many decades, right? Many, many hours, right? Many, many thousands of hours practicing, so you get results that are in accordance with the effort, unless you're far, far more talented at this than I am. I mean, that's a possibility.
that's possible.
It's all
Like,
anything possible. Yeah.
but if you are the person that's like 2 minutes is all I can handle right now, totally okay. Like you have to start somewhere.
Every step's a step. Yeah. It
Yes,
all counts.
absolutely.
You
One
get
of
the
the most
win.
powerful women I know had to start at 3 minutes a day. She really had to start that, and she worked
Yeah.
at it, and now she's got it. So, yeah.
You do what you can, right? And you celebrate that. That's a step.
Mhm.
We have another question. This is a big one. It says, do you have any insight into combating addiction such as alcoholism? Um, yeah, I mean, this is something we could say a lot about this.
This is like a
And
topic. Yeah.
it's a topic, definitely, um,
Yeah.
because it's a basic thing that we deal with, right? I mean,
Mhm.
like show me the person who'd never been addicted to something. Come on, like
Right.
that's good.
Yeah.
So it's a basic thing, and there's lots of different things that we can, become addicted to, right? And so, one of the things that I think of in relative to this is, what does this mean to you, right? Like addiction is a word, like, and so the question is like, what does it mean to you, right? Um, does it mean that you feel like you are a slave to the habit or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
what are the like let's get specific about what are the, what do you think are the negatives, right? You get into that. But it's also good to be like, well, let me get into the positives. What made me want to do this, right? What makes me want to keep doing it, right? So, that's something that is part of this whole thing, right? You want to acknowledge that too. And you also want to look at, what is the energy doing here, right? Um, so, you know, now of course I don't want to say something like about, oh, this can work instead of this other thing or whatever. No, no. My situation is whatever helps you do, right? So, I'm never gonna say like, don't do rehab, just meditate. No, no, right? I mean, like, you use all the tools that help, right?
Right.
Um, Meditation is one of those tools though, right? Because and like wellness professionals who deal in this area know this, right? And they often will teach it or they'll recommend it. Maybe they can't teach it, but they can, they know it's good, right? So it's definitely a tool in the toolbox, right? Um, and it's part of the process of, like, especially if you're going through some kind of process of change, right? And you're getting support. Maybe you're talking about things, you're reflecting about things. It's a good tool to have along with that, right? So never would I say it's the only tool, right? But it's definitely certainly helped a lot of people. I mean, I could share some my own experiences, I guess. I don't know, like, what to say there. I feel like everyone has their own kind of journey with it. I don't know. Do you want to speak to this at all, Thea?
Sure. Yeah, like I said, it's really its own topic. Maybe Asatar and I will cover this soon. But it's like it's a huge topic. Like on the one hand, it's very much a coping mechanism. So like just having compassion for yourself. Like you are trying to cope, like that is what you're doing with addiction. And so it's just that maybe as you can, and again baby steps are huge, just like implementing habits that will help you cope in ways that are more sustainable and healthy, right? um, and so I would say, like, basically, like, heart rhythm meditation is definitely one of those. Just even deep breathing. Speaking of power, I mean, listen, like everything gets taken away from you. What do you still have? You still have your breath and you still have your heart. You always have those things. And so just remembering, like, you have control over your breath, and that is something that you can work with, and it changes your system. It responds, your central nervous system responds to your breath. So like if you are having a lot of anxiety and that's causing you to use these coping mechanisms, deep breathing will literally move your diaphragm muscle along your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve will activate, and that will activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which will relax you, right? If you are dealing with depression, getting more breath in will help you just get more energy, basically. It'll help energize things and help move the stuff that's kind of stagnant. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's very powerful to be able to have some kind of mechanism that changes your own state, right? Like Leah's saying, and a lot of time, I mean, this is a lot of times what we look for in, like, if we're talking about substance, addiction, right? We are often looking for something that calms us down, right? Thoughts racing, feeling stressed, right? I need to relax, right? So that's like one kind of energetic shift that we're looking at. Like, getting good at meditation helps you relax. Maybe you don't need that as much, right? Maybe the need for that is, and that might help you, so, we're not going to comment on, like, you should do this or you should do that, right? There's already enough of that, right? People telling us what
Right.
we should do. It's more like, this is a tool, right? We've used that tool in certain ways, and it's helpful, um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
gives you inner power. And with that, there's a bunch of things you can do, right? You have more options.
Yes.
Well,
Thanks. Mm. So we have about 10 minutes left. Should we close with the meditation? Is there anything else, Asatar, that you wanted to make sure to say on the topic itself?
I mean, I feel like I have a zillion things to say, but I don't know
You.
what they are. So I guess I should just keep my mouth shut and look wise, like I'm pondering. Uh,
Well, if something comes to you
I'll say it. Yeah.
that you really want to say, um, I um, I think I just want to say, don't underestimate your personal power. Like, we need to be powerful in ourselves, and especially if you have a heart of gold, like, you need to be powerful in yourself so that you can bring that out into the world and share it with other people. And so and the thing is like, your sphere of influence is huge. Like, it's much bigger than you realize, and part of that is just you, who you are. People love you and they are influenced by you. Like, the word influencers on Instagram is like a good descriptor, because
Mm.
we do influence each other. And the reason
Reinforcement. Yeah.
the reason we influence each other is because social proof is the second highest form of influence. So observational learning in childhood is one of the major ways in which we learn. We observe other people. And so when I show you proof that I can breathe deeply, you might think, maybe I can breathe deeply too, as an example.
So true. Yeah. So true. We're always underestimating our own influence, right? We're always hiding our light under a basket, right? What if we didn't do that anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
what if the world could just adjust to a more powerful you?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it can. Perhaps the branches can grow around this new magnificent tree that's here.
Well, yes. Asatar, I would love if you led us into our closing meditation tonight, if you're open to that.
Oh, all right, sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Surprise.
surprise. Um, that's how we keep fresh here. It's not all fully scripted. Like even the mistakes are scripted. They're not. All right. Well, um, so take your nice upright posture again, and really work on your breath. Bring it down deep, just letting that belly expand, bringing it up then into your chest as you let your chest expand, bringing the breath in, and then contracting. The breath has a way of just kind of flowing out once you stop lifting, right? So when you expand your chest, it feels like you're doing some lifting, right? Like that your chest is lifting. If you just stop doing that, your chest sort of sinks back down, right? So there's the beginning part of the exhalation is easy, right? It's like an arrow that's being held at full draw on a bow. I'm sure you guys are all archers, so that,
Cool.
like that feeling, right? It takes effort to hold that arrow back, right? It takes effort to hold the breath back. It takes effort to hold back your power from unfurling, right? What if you release that effort, right? At first, it's easy, but then the question is, are we done, right? So there's a part of your breath that just wants to be released, right? Now, you could just sort of stop, let it peter out, right? That'll be a certain size breath. But you could also do more. You could also squeeze your abdominal muscles and keep breathing out much, much longer than you thought, right? But in a slow and controlled manner. Then when you breathe in again, right? After breathing out much harder. Then when you breathe in, you're going to be taking a much bigger breath in. It's going to feel like that breath wants to come in, right? You're just releasing it, whoop, right? You control it, you keep it slow, right? The whole time you're holding back, you are controlling the breath. What are you doing? You are making yourself more powerful on a very fundamental level. Your breath is big. You start to feel the size of it, the enormity of it, the energy of it. And it just feels extraordinary every time, doesn't it? I mean, you really take a real breath. It feels like, oh, you're stretching, slowly stretching your entire breathing mechanism, right? From the inside out, cleansing yourself, revitalizing yourself. I mean, I will tell you guys, every time I do this, and I've done this many, many thousands of times, I don't know how many times, right? It is gives me something new every time. It's just endlessly, endlessly um, exciting and new, and just the energy, the energy of a big, powerful breath. Sometimes people tell me after breathing this way that they felt so much they were almost trembling, that they just wanted to it's that feeling of like pulling back the arrow and then you just want to let it fly, want to let it fly, want to let it fly, right? It's hard to hold it back. When you have that energy, it wants to flow, right? You get ideas and you want to jump up and do them, and this is our whole outlook, our whole focus, right? It's doing, doing, doing. So, of course, right? Get a good idea, something that's important to you, you want to do it. But what if you stayed with his energy a little bit longer, right? And just really tried to experience it, right? What does it feel like to hold back that arrow, right? To have that ready to fly, but you're only going to let it fly the right time, the right place, so that it hits its mark, right? We don't often do this, do we? We often just react. Some energy comes in, we bounce it, right? Oh, you're going to say this? Boom, I'm going to say this. I'm going to do this, right? What if we drew all that energy in with a big, powerful breath? Took in the energy with that kind of deliberate slowness. And then as we breathe out all the way slowly, right? Letting that whole experience go right through us into our deepest wisdom, where we learn how it is we are going to respond and from what place we are going to express that energy. And then when we let fly that arrow, it's going to have a much greater chance of hitting the mark, isn't it? I mean, nothing is guaranteed in this life, right? But when you really wait for your shot and then take it, it's better, isn't it? I mean, it's more likely, right? All right, well, we'll end our meditation there.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's lovely to share the vibe with all of you.
Thank you, Asatar. It was really wonderful to be here with you and everyone that meditated with us now or later. Please follow me on Instagram if you would like more inspiration.
Only if you want more beauty and inspiration in your life. And of course, if you want to support the show, go to my Patreon. Link is in the description, or it's patreon.com/asatarbear. Thank you guys so much. We're here every week. Hope to sit with you again.
Thank you.